The first thing I remember about that night was the dress. It was a soft, dark blue, the kind of material that feels like a whisper against your skin. It had been a long time since I'd worn a dress. In the Navy, everything was structured, functional. My clothes were uniforms, armor. This dress felt like a costume for a person. I was trying to learn how to be. My date, Mark, was nice. Genuinely nice. He had a kind smile and talked about his job in marketing with a passion that was both foreign and endearing to me. He was telling a story about a disastrous ad campaign involving a man in a hot dog suit. And I was trying so hard to just be there, in that moment, to be the kind of woman who laughs at a story about a hot dog suit and doesn't automatically scan the restaurant for every possible exit. That it was a small bistro, cozy, with little candles on the tables that made everything feel warm and safe. I was consciously unclenching my hands from my lap, telling myself to relax. You're a civilian now. Sarah, civilians go on dates. They drink wine and talk about hot dog suits. Just breathe. That's when they came in. 3 of them. They weren't bad guys from a movie. They were just loud, ordinary men who'd had too much to drink and thought the world belonged to them. They were loud enough that the gentle hum of the restaurant conversations faltered. They jostled a table on their way to the bar, not apologizing, just laughing. I felt it then. A low thrum of awareness, like a string being pulled taut inside me. My posture straightened without me telling it to. I took a sip of water, my eyes tracking them in the reflection of the window. Next to our table. Mark didn't notice. He was still, smiling, waiting for me to laugh at his punchline. I gave him a small, tight smile. That's crazy, I said, but my voice felt distant. My focus was split. The men got their drinks, and instead of staying at the bar, they decided to stand in the narrow walkway between the tables right near us. They were talking loudly, using language that made an elderly couple nearby flinch. The waitress, a young girl who couldn't have been more than 20, politely asked them if they could move to the bar so she could get through with a tray of food. The biggest of the 3, a man with a thick neck and a reddish beard, turned to her. He smirked. What's the hurry, sweetheart? Got a hot date? He let his eyes roam over her in a way that made my stomach clench. The girl blushed. Sir, I just need to get past. He leaned in closer. Maybe I can help you with that tray. He reached out, not for the tray, but for her waist. That was it. The string inside me snapped. Before Mark could even register what was happening, I said, clearly and calmly, "Hey, leave her alone." My voice wasn't loud, but it cut through their noise. The 3 of them turned to look at me. The big one's smirk widened. Well, look what we have here. Little Miss Tough Guy. He took a step toward our table. Mark put a hand on my arm, a gesture meant to be protective, calming. Sarah, it's okay. He whispered, let's not make a scene. But it was too late. The man's focus was entirely on me now. He was enjoying this. He saw a woman in a pretty blue dress, on a date, and he saw a target. You got something to say to me? He slurred, leaning over our table. His breath was sour with beer. I didn't move. I just looked at him. My training had taught me 1,000 things, but the most important was how to control the space, how to read intent, and this man's intent was simple, intimidation. He wanted me to shrink. He wanted me to be afraid. I said, I repeated, my voice even lower, even calmer, leave her alone, and back away from my table. His friends snickered. The big guy's face darkened. He wasn't used to being challenged. He reached across the table and grabbed my wrist. His grip was surprisingly strong. Listen, you little. And that's when the 15 seconds started. The moment his fingers closed around my arm, the world went quiet. The chatter of the restaurant, the clinking of glasses, Mark's panicked breathing, it all faded into a dull, distant roar. The candle flame on our table seemed to freeze. Time didn't stop, but it stretched like pulling taffy. Every single micro-expression on his face became crystal clear. The surprise, the flash of anger, the confidence that he was in control. He was wrong. My body moved before my brain had a chance to argue. It wasn't Sarah, the marketing assistant trying to have a nice dinner, who was in charge anymore. It was Petty Officer Miller. My left hand, the one he wasn't holding, came up under the table. I didn't make a fist. A fist is for punching. for breaking. A palm is for striking, for stunning. As he pulled my arm to drag me up, I used his own momentum. I rose from my chair, not resisting, but flowing with his movement. 1 second. My right hand, the one he was holding, twisted. A simple flick of the wrist, a move we practiced until our bones ached. I put my thumb on the back of his hand for leverage and torqued it inward. He felt a spike of pain he wasn't expecting. His grip loosened in shock. 3 seconds. I was free. I didn't pull back. I moved forward into his space, crowding him. His friend, the one who had been snickering, started to move toward me from the side. I saw him in my periphery. A threat. 5 seconds. The big guy was still processing the pain in his wrist. He opened his mouth to shout, his face a mask of disbelief. My left palm heel struck the base of his nose. It wasn't a knockout blow. It was a shock. The kind of impact that sends a blinding, white-hot firecracker of pain through your sinuses and makes your eyes water so intensely you can't see. He staggered back, hands flying to his face, making a sound like a wet cough. 7 seconds. He stumbled backward into the second man, who was just lunging for me. They became a clumsy, tangled mess. The second man shoved his friend off him, his face now furious. He swung a wild, clumsy punch at my head. 9 seconds. I wasn't there. I had already sidestepped, letting his arm fly past my face. I grabbed the sleeve of his jacket, using his forward momentum to pull him off balance. As he stumbled past me, I drove my knee hard into the side of his thigh, right into the sciatic nerve cluster. It's not a movie move. It's just debilitatingly painful. His leg gave out completely. He went down with a yelp, clutching his thigh. His face screwed up in agony. 12 seconds. The third man, who had been watching from a few feet away, froze. His eyes were wide. He looked at his friend on the floor, then at the big one still trying to wipe the blood and tears from his eyes, and then at me. I hadn't moved from my spot. I was just standing there, breathing calmly, my hands held loosely at my sides. I met his eyes. I didn't say a word. In my gaze, he didn't see a woman in a blue dress anymore. I don't know what he saw, but it was enough. 15 seconds. He put his hands up, palms out. Hey, no problem. We're leaving. We're going. He grabbed his big friend by the arm and started hauling him toward the door, leaving the second man whimpering on the floor. And just like that, it was over. The silence that followed was louder than the fight itself. Every single person in the restaurant was staring. The clatter of a fork hitting a plate echoed like a gunshot. Then the world came rushing back in. The smell of spilled wine, the sound of the man on the floor groaning, and Mark's face. He was staring at me, his mouth slightly open, a piece of bread halfway to his lips. The look in his eyes wasn't admiration. It was shock, and maybe a little bit of fear. The manager rushed over, fumbling with his phone. Is everyone, are you okay? Ma'am, I finally looked down at myself. The pretty blue dress was unwrinkled. Not a hair was out of place. I smoothed it down, my hand trembling just slightly. The adrenaline was starting to recede, leaving a cold, shaky feeling in its wake. I'm fine, I said, my voice sounding hollow. To my own ears, you should call the police. The police came, and I gave my statement. I was calm, clinical. I used simple, direct sentences. He initiated physical contact. I neutralized the threat. The officer, a woman with tired eyes, just nodded and wrote it down. She'd seen things. She understood. Mark tried. He really did. He paid the bill while I was talking to the police. On the walk to his car, he kept saying, "That was incredible. Sarah, just, wow, I can't believe you did that." But his voice was strained. He kept a careful foot of distance between us on the sidewalk. He saw me differently now. I wasn't the woman who laughed at his stories. I was the woman who could dismantle 3 men in the time it takes to tie a shoe. I was something he didn't understand. The car ride home was mostly silent. I stared out the window at the city lights blurring past, and a deep, aching sadness settled in my chest. I had tried so hard to leave that part of me behind. That hard, sharp, efficient part. I had wanted, just for one night, to be soft, to be the woman in the blue dress. when he pulled up to my apartment building. He didn't turn off the engine. "Well," he said, staring at the steering wheel, you can really handle yourself." "It's just my training," I said quietly. "Yeah," he nodded, "right, the Navy." He finally looked at me, and his kind eyes were full of a confusion that broke my heart. I'll call you." I knew he wouldn't. I just nodded. "Okay, Mark, good night." I got out of the car and didn't look back. Inside my small, quiet apartment, I leaned against the closed door and slid down to the floor. The silence was absolute. And then, the shaking started. It began in my hands and spread through my whole body, my teeth chattering. The carefully constructed walls I had built around myself all night, all week, all year since I'd been discharged, they all came crumbling down. I pulled my knees to my chest, wrapped my arms around them, and I cried. I didn't cry for the men. I didn't cry out of fear. I cried for the loss of that simple, normal evening. I cried because Mark, a perfectly nice man, was now scared of me. I cried because I felt like a fraud in a dress, a fraud in this quiet civilian life. I had brought the violence of my old world into the peace of my new one, and I hated myself for it. That training, the thing that had saved me, also felt like a curse. It was a part of me, etched into my muscles and my reflexes. It was a language I couldn't unlearn, and no one here seemed to speak it. After a long time, the tears stopped. I was just empty and cold. I got up, went into the bathroom, and looked at myself in the mirror. My eyes were red and puffy. My face was pale. But underneath the sadness, I saw her. The woman who had stood up in that restaurant. Her eyes were clear. Her jaw was set. She wasn't a monster. She wasn't a weapon. She was a protector. She had protected that young waitress. She had protected herself. That training wasn't a curse. It was a part of my story. The Navy had taken a scared, 19-year-old girl and forged her into something strong. I couldn't just cut that part out and throw it away. Trying to hide it, to pretend it didn't exist, was the real lie. I reached up and touched the soft fabric of the dress. It was still just a dress, and I was still just a woman who could laugh at a story about a hot dog suit, and a woman who knew how to break a man's wrist. I could be both. Maybe, for the first time, I realized I had to be both. I wasn't a fraud. I was just me. And for the first time since I'd taken off my uniform, that felt like it might just be enough.